Since the beginning of time, people have always suspected that something was out there in the deepest reaches of space. Some have assumed that aliens are flying around, ready to make contact with humanity. Others fear that a devastating sea of asteroids is rushing our way. While so much is still undiscovered, we have come across some pretty wild things in space. What are some of the strangest things that scientists and astronomers have stumbled upon while searching the cosmos? Some of them are overwhelming, frightening even, and some are just awe-inspiring and beautiful. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the most bizarre things we have ever discovered in the cosmos. If we are touching upon strange things from space, we have to discuss asteroids. Few things are as scary as asteroids. Thanks to movies, books, and television, nearly every person on Earth knows we could face immediate extinction if one of these space rocks happens to land smack dab in the middle of our planet. Thankfully, we have been lucky so far, but we have noticed some large, strange asteroids in recent years. One of them was asteroid 2001 F032, which came whizzing by our planet at a breakneck speed of 77,000 miles per hour. It came very close to us. Well, close by space standards. The asteroid, which is about 2,230 feet wide, passed us by at a safe range of 1.25 million miles. F032's speed was unusual and unlike most other asteroids. While all asteroids and comets move quickly, 77,000 miles per hour is lightning quick even for them. The reason for its accelerated pace has to do with its highly inclined and elongated orbit around the Sun, which is a tilt of about 39 degrees to Earth's orbital plane. The rock picks up speed as it races inward towards the Sun and then slows again as it heads towards Mars. And yes, F032 will return to pass by Earth again. It is estimated that the superfast asteroid will head our way in 2052, but as long as our calculations are correct, it shouldn't pose us any threat. Speaking of asteroids and space rocks, we should touch upon something that isn't quite an asteroid, but sure looks and acts like one. Traveling through the stars at a speed of 57,000 miles per hour is something called Oumuamua, which is Hawaiian for a messenger from afar arriving first. This space creation looks like something straight from a sci-fi show because it closely resembles an alien spaceship. But don't get too excited. Oumuamua isn't an alien spaceship, it's just a disc-shaped 10 times as long as it is wide and similar to a giant cigar floating in the galaxy. What is it? Well, scientists aren't entirely sure. Some think it's an asteroid that just happens to be in odd shape. Others think that maybe it's a mass of solid hydrogen or cosmic dust. And of course, others think it really is a Martian vessel in disguise. Whatever it is, it's moving quickly and weirdly. In fact, its acceleration away from the Sun is one of the things that has scientists scratching their heads. While it's expected that some comets might accelerate as they travel away from the Sun after orbiting by it because the gas from their tails gives them a boost, this giant space object doesn't have a tail and therefore has no reason to be moving away from the massive Sun at such speeds. There was obviously something pushing the object away, and that's only led to more speculation that some sort of engine is perhaps guiding Oumuamua. We still don't know what it is or where it's headed. In all likelihood, it's probably a piece of hydrogen or an enormous piece of ice, but whatever it is, it has caught the attention of many. As has Tabby's star, another space mystery that has raised a few eyebrows. Located 1,500 light-years from Earth in the Cygnus constellation, Tabby's star was named after astronomer Tabitha Boyajian, who discovered the celestial body fluctuates in brightness from time to time. In fact, research has shown that Tabby's star loses up to 22% of its brightness at times. Stars don't usually work like that. The wild change in brightness is certainly a giant question mark with no answer. Some assume that perhaps a field of comets is smashing against the star at times, kicking up gigantic amounts of dust that could seemingly lower the star's brightness. Not surprisingly, some people think that maybe advanced alien structures are blocking the brightness of the star. While that would be exciting and maybe a bit terrifying, it's rather unlikely. Instead, the dust explanation is probably the most likely answer to this major astronomical mystery. What if you found out there was another planet in our solar system, pushed so far out of reach that we have never come across it? Would you believe it? There is a good, growing chance that this fantasy could become a reality, because some astronomers are certain that they are this close to proving that the fabled Planet 9 does exist. If it does, it would be one of the strangest and most shocking things ever discovered in space. Currently, many people believe that there is a Planet 9 far, far from us and the Sun. It is said to be about 10 times larger than Earth and 20 times farther from the Sun than Neptune. If such a planet does exist, it would take between 10,000 to 20,000 Earth years to make a complete orbit around the Sun. No wonder we haven't seen this planet yet. But what is the evidence that suggests Planet 9 is out there? It has to do with the gravitational effects noted on a group of icy objects that lie just beyond the orbit of Neptune. The orbits of these objects are elongated, as if something massive, like Planet 9, is affecting them. Based upon those facts and a vast array of other mathematical modeling and computer simulations, some people are downright certain that Planet 9 exists. We just haven't seen it yet because of its incredible distance from us. Gas clouds in space are beautiful, captivating things that you have probably seen many times before. They are one of the greatest wonders of space and celebrated for their weird and varying forms. But one nebula in space is quite peculiar. It is called the Red Rectangle Nebula, and it rests around 2,300 light-years away from us. As you probably guess, it has a very distinctive rectangular shape. Some have theorized that the bizarre shape is due to the fact that two stars sit at the heart of the nebula. This means that shock waves from both stars hit the dusty ring surrounding them and create an interesting formation. Meanwhile, a phenomenon called extended red emission causes the nebula to have a somewhat creepy red glow about it. So not only is this thing shaped oddly, it's colored oddly too. Strange. Research was done by a team at Washington State University. They located 24 planets outside of our solar system that are not only Earth-like, but actually better than Earth in some major ways. It's important to remember that the researchers weren't actually looking for life itself, but rather planets that could be a good home for it. The list of planets includes some that are larger than ours, warmer, or even wetter. Another way to get on the list is to be a planet that orbits around a star and has a longer lifespan than our Sun. As you can see, all of these things added up together create a planet that any human would be happy to call home. To create this list, researchers created a slew of features that they were looking for to consider a planet super-habitable. A super-habitable planet is one that would be able to foster a civilization like ours, and might even do a better job than Earth. So what makes a planet super-habitable? What are the conditions that make life most possible? Earth served as a starting point for determining which planets may be dubbed super-habitable, although researchers allowed for some wiggle room. Planets that are rocky and orbit inside the host star's habitable zone or the area surrounding a star that allows liquid water to exist were included in the list. Researchers also looked for a Goldilocks zone, or a location that is neither too hot nor too cold, but just right. After setting Earth as the basis for their search, they began looking for a certain type of star. Our star, the Sun, is considered a G-type star. That means it's been around for about 4.6 billion years and will last for about 5.6 billion more. That might seem an awfully long time to you, but in the grand scheme of things, there are many other stars that last a lot longer than that. Take K-type stars, for example. They are orange dwarf stars that have a lifespan of about 20 billion and 70 billion years. A K-type star is far greater for life because it gives organisms far more time to develop and grow. 10 billion years is great, but it doesn't beat 70 billion. So when researchers began hunting for planets that could be better than Earth, they looked for stars that could last longer. Researchers also tried to find planets that were about 5 to 8 billion years old and up to 1.5 times larger than our planet. When it came to temperature, they allowed a leeway of about 5 degrees warmer with an atmosphere of about 30% oxygen. Of course, any hospitable planet would need a lot of land and a lot of water too. It would also need a substantial moon that is about 1 to 10% the size of the planet. As the team began to winnow down what made a planet so special, the number of candidates began to drop down. It's important to remember that the list of possible superhabitable planets that started with more than 45,000 known exoplanets in the Milky Way. After all the work and qualifications, it was narrowed down to a group of just 24. Of all the 24 planets, none of them actually checked off every box on that superhabitable list. That's mostly because of missing data about moons, lands, plate tectonics, and more. But despite that, scientists did find one prime planet that they feel is the MVP, or most valuable planet. So, which planet earned the lucky honors of being better than Earth when it comes to being hospitable? That would be KIC 9832379. The planet is about 1.8 times bigger than Earth and only 5.5 billion years old. It orbits around the K-type star known as KOI 5715 and was discovered by the Kepler Space Telescope in a star field within the Cygnus constellation. Based upon all the research and the many attributes it holds, KIC 9832379 would probably make a splendid home for any number of organisms. However, we will never know for sure because it rests about 2.964 light-years away from us. If there is no chance that we will ever visit this planet and others on the list, what is the point of locating them? Why did the research team at Washington State University waste its time if this was leading nowhere? The truth is that this list was an exercise for future powerful telescopes that are being created and going online in the next few years. The most famous of these is NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, which just launched, along with the European Space Agency's Plato Space Telescope and NASA's Louvier Space Observatory. The researchers at Washington State saw this collection of super hospitable planets as a to-do list for these new telescopes. In other words, they were targets for them to look at, deep space locations to focus on as they get up and running and push the limits of modern telescopes. With the next space telescopes coming up, we will get more information, so it is important to select some targets, said Dirk Schultz-Makuch, the geobiologist and professor with Washington State University who led the study. For years, people have wondered about an Earth 2.0, a planet like ours that could possibly become our home if worst came to worst and we had to travel somewhere new. The sad reality is this will likely never happen. While there is a chance we could possibly terraform Mars or set up colonies on the Moon, the chances of us finding a planet we can actually travel to is close to zero. The team at Washington State University knows that, and they were aware that they weren't looking for a home for Earthlings. Instead, they were looking to prove that, as special as Earth is, it isn't the best place in all the universe for life. Schultz-Makuch put it best when he said, "We have a great number of complex and diverse life forms and many that can survive in extreme environments. It is good to have an adaptable life, but that doesn't mean that we have the best of everything." In fact, when the research of super hospitable planets was completed, Earth ranked 25th at the bottom of the list. So it's safe to say that we can no longer claim Earth as the best planet in the universe. Now we know of at least 24 others that could create a comfier, healthier home. Unfortunately, they all happen to be out of reach. Unlike Earth, the planet Jupiter has more than one moon. In fact, Jupiter has at least 79 different moons, and Europa is just one of them. Europa is the sixth largest moon in the Jovian system and is about 90% the size of our own moon that orbits Earth. Recently, the Hubble Space Telescope made a discovery that shocked and excited NASA. After years of suspicion and speculation, Hubble detected water vapor in the atmosphere of Europa. This massive discovery gives scientists a much better understanding of Jupiter's moons and offers the idea that maybe, just maybe, Europa has conditions that are hospitable for life. If that were the case, it means that future scientific missions related to the Jovian system will have a strong focus on finding life. Like all things related to scientific space discoveries, this huge find raises even more questions than answers. Observations of water on Europa have been made before, but all previous discoveries of water on the Moon have been associated with plumes of water erupting through the ice that coats the planet. These plumes of water are similar to geysers found on Earth, although the plumes are thought to shoot about 60 miles into the sky. However, these new findings show amounts of water vapor spread over a larger area of Europa. All said and done, the vapor has been spotted many times over the last 2 decades, which suggests a long-term presence in Europa's atmosphere. Why is this so shocking? Well, it's not just because finding water in any part of the solar system is cause for celebration. The Europa finding is even more surprising because the Moon is so darn cold. The daytime high on Europa is about negative 260 degrees. That's partly because the Moon reflects sunlight off of itself, preventing it from warming up much. Yet the Moon is still producing a persistent amount of water vapor, something that is making scientists wonder what other tricks Europa has up its sleeve. Images of Europa from satellites have been captured several times. In fact, Europa is quite popular among scientists and astronomers. In the 1970s, NASA's Twin Pioneer and Twin Voyager spacecraft provided the first close-up pictures of a damaged frozen surface. The Galileo mission, which took place from 1995 and 2003, provided much more information on Jupiter and its moons. In addition to the Hubble Space Telescope and other observatories located near or on Earth, several spacecraft have gone past Europa as they made their way to other destinations. However, these views are constrained since they have all been on or near the ecliptic, a plane on which the Sun, planets, and many of the moons of the solar system circle. Now you can see why such incredible photographs of Europa and its water vapors are so special. For years, it had all been hiding in plain sight, just waiting for NASA and scientists on Earth to discover it. This incredible find was made by Lorenz Roth of the KTH Royal Institute of Technology, Space and Plasma Physics in Sweden. Roth made his discovery by examining data collected by the Hubble telescope over multiple years. He did so by using the Telescope Imaging Spectrograph, or STIS, which allows astronomers to assess the chemical elements that make up a planet or moon's atmosphere. Roth was able to quantify the amount of molecular oxygen in Europa's atmosphere based on these measurements. While that might not sound like very exciting work for you and me, it allowed Roth to stumble upon this incredible discovery. While finding water vapors on Europa is without a doubt a major deal, it's not the first time that one of Jupiter's many moons revealed its affinity for liquid. Just months ago, it was confirmed that water vapors also exist on another of Jupiter's moons, Ganymede. Located 500 million miles from the Sun, the water on Ganymede is frozen solid in temperatures that reach as low as negative 300 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 184 degrees Celsius. It's long been assumed that if an ocean exists on Ganymede, it would have to reside some 100 miles below the surface due to its frigid climate. Despite the bone-chilling temperature, it was determined that when the charged particles from the Sun reach the Moon, it's enough to turn the ice into water vapors. Still, the news of water on Europa is a bit more surprising, simply because Europa's surface is generally more consistently cold and rarely ever peaking above -260 degrees Fahrenheit. Finding water vapors on the Moon means that Europa immediately shoots to the top of the list for places that scientists want to explore. And in just a few years, those startling revelations may come to pass. That's because Europa and the other moons surrounding Jupiter are set to be explored within a decade. The ESA's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, otherwise known as JUICE, is set to launch in 2022 and will arrive in the Jovian system in 2031. JUICE is a major project that is being created to really understand Jupiter's entire system so much better. The centerpiece of JUICE will be a powerful probe that will carry instruments comprising of the most powerful sensing equipment ever created. It will fly to Europa and many of the other moons and catalogue what it finds. Specifically, JUICE is looking for any more signs that life could have existed or still does. For years, not much has been known about Jupiter as it existed far past our reach in the icy depths of space. But these latest discoveries on the planet's moons have shown that this is a section of the solar system that we should be paying close attention to. Soon enough, we will get more answers. But until then, we will have to keep hoping that once we do finally explore Europa, it will be worth the wait. New Horizons is a project created by NASA all the way back in the 1980s. It was put together with one purpose: to finally get a better grasp on Pluto and see how this bizarre little chunk of ice worked. The $720 million project might have been dreamed up by the brilliant minds at NASA 30 years ago, but it wasn't until the early 2000s that it was officially given approval and a launch date. New Horizons took to the stars in January 2006, given the task of the first ever flyby of Pluto. Ever since the dwarf planet was first discovered back in the 1930s, many questions have swirled around it. New Horizons would be the best chance to really understand what was going on by getting very, very close to its surface. In fact, the New Horizons vessel would pass within 7,800 miles of the frigid, rocky surface of Pluto. That would definitely be close enough to snap quite a few promising pictures. It took New Horizons nearly 10 years to reach its destination, but on July 14, 2015, it zoomed past the planet for the first time. The images that New Horizons sent back were revolutionary and truly gave a new view of this beautiful, mysterious planet. Massive ice mountains, nitrogen ice plains, and Pluto's well-known heart were all on crystal clear display for the first time. These images were groundbreaking for many reasons, but they only told half the story of Pluto. Because of lighting issues, New Horizons was only able to grab shots of the side of Pluto that was illuminated by the sun. As you can imagine, capturing pictures of the dark side of Pluto is a complicated process. Backlighting and speed are major issues. Simply put, if New Horizons tried to get shots of Pluto's dark half, the sun would backlight the images and make them nearly impossible to comprehend. It's like when the sun is shining through your car's front windshield. You can't see much of anything. It's all blocked out by the overwhelming brightness of the sun. But the team behind the mission had a thought. Based on their research and hard work, they determined that the dwarf planet's largest moon, Charon, might reflect enough light to cast some on Pluto's surface. Charon isn't like our moon. It retains a lot more light and reflects it much more too. Even with the sun on the opposite side, it was possible that Charon could be used as a spotlight on Pluto. The idea was enough to make the team turn the vessel back towards the sun and take one last look at Pluto. To make this new photo session work, the researchers had the spacecraft snap 360 short photographs of the surface of the dwarf planet. Each photograph was just 0.4 seconds long to prevent overexposure. The team also photographed the sun without Pluto in the frame so that it could be deleted later. What they saw was well worth their time. But at first, deciphering these photos was too tall a task. It just took too much time, according to Todd Lauer of the National Optical Astronomy Observatory in Tucson. But a few years later, Lauer and his team dug into the images and made them work by using computer programs to eliminate fuzz and other visual impairments in the photographs. The images showed the strange, unique way that Pluto's atmosphere works. On the dwarf planet, seasons move very, very slowly. In fact, each season is decades long. The seasons and atmosphere are controlled by how much nitrogen is in a gas phase in the air and how much is frozen on the surface below. If more nitrogen ice evaporates, the atmosphere obviously becomes thicker. However, if there is too much frozen on the ground, the atmosphere might not function correctly and collapse altogether. New Horizons photos revealed that Pluto's south pole seemed notably darker than its north pole. That proves that despite the fact that winter was approaching, there was not a lot of new nitrogen frost freezing out of the atmosphere. Although the last summer ended decades ago, Pluto cools incredibly slowly. So maybe it's still warm enough that ice can't form, keeping the atmosphere from collapsing. These images from the blind side of Pluto gave an in-depth look at the atmosphere of the planet in ways that scientists had never had before. But there was more discovered in the photographs from New Horizons, including something that can only be summed up with two words: ice volcanoes. The idea of a volcano spewing ice might seem bizarre and truly out of this world to you, and that's because frankly it is. In fact, what was found on Pluto by New Horizons is a first for our solar system, something that literally has never been seen anywhere else. Images from the Deep Space Probe captured what looks like two volcanoes built out of frozen ice that once oozed molten ice from deep within the dwarf planet. The two peaks, named Wright Mons and Picard Mons, tower as high as 5 or 6 kilometers above the planet's surface, with rims more than 150 kilometers across. Instead of hot lava, like in Earth's volcanoes, flowing ice would spew forth from these massive mountains. Even though these are ice volcanoes, they would still need to be powered by a major internal heat source. And that's one of the strangest things about this discovery. In the past, most experts thought that Pluto was far too small to maintain that sort of heat needed to power a volcano. However, finding these ice volcanoes suggests that something has to be keeping things warm below the surface. As one researcher at NASA put it, whatever they are, they're definitely weird. These newfound volcanoes are a startling and amazing find, but they also raise many more questions about this cold alien world. After decades of thinking we had this dwarf planet figured out, the work done by New Horizons has shown that there is still so much to figure out about Pluto. From the harsh atmosphere to the bitter cold to one-of-a-kind ice volcanoes, New Horizons has revealed more than ever expected about Pluto. It's a strange small ice cube of a planet that, for the time being, is full of more questions than answers. After millions of dollars, decades of planning, and years of flying through deep space, New Horizons has illuminated the planet in some incredible ways and has left the door open for even more discoveries in the future. A black hole is a portion of space in which gravity is so intensely strong that not even light can escape from it. Because the matter has been crammed into such a small space, gravity is extremely powerful. Now, it's a fact that you've never seen a black hole yourself because, well, it's actually impossible. People cannot see black holes because no light can escape them. They are essentially undetectable. Space telescopes equipped with specialized equipment can aid in the discovery of black holes, but even that is an incredibly difficult task for even the most advanced technology. Special instruments can see how stars in close proximity to black holes behave differently from other nearby stars. Stellar black holes, which are those that have masses up to 20 times more than our Sun, are formed when the core of a massive star collapses in on itself. When this happens, a supernova occurs. A supernova is a star that explodes and sends a portion of its mass into space. Supermassive black holes, according to scientists, were created at the same time as the galaxy in which they reside. As you can tell, black holes are profoundly complicated and intricate objects in space and require a lot of studying. NASA has been studying them for years now, and yet truly learning about black holes has never gotten easier for the mere fact that no sort of instruments could get even remotely close to them because of their distance from Earth. Until recently, getting a shot of a black hole has always been downright impossible. Now, NASA has gotten a good look at a black hole, and achieving such a goal was no small feat. The image depicts the shadow cast by the supermassive black hole at the center of Messier 87 or M87, an elliptical galaxy 55 million light-years from Earth. This black hole has a mass that is 6.5 billion times that of our massive Sun. To snap this shot, 8 ground-based radio telescopes across the world worked in tandem, as if they were one giant telescope the size of our entire planet to catch its shadow. The Event Horizon Telescope, EHT, is an international network of radio telescopes in Chile, Mexico, Spain, Hawaii, Arizona, and the Antarctic that has been working for years to gain a good look at a black hole using a totally new approach. In addition to the EHT results, numerous NASA satellites were part of a broad effort to observe the black hole using other wavelengths of light, which was coordinated by the EHT's Multi-Wavelength Working Group. The Chandra X-ray Observatory, Nuclear Spectroscopic Telescope Array, and Neil Gehrels Swift Observatory Space Telescope projects, all of which are sensitive to distinct types of X-ray light, pointed their telescopes at the M87 black hole around the same time as the EHT in April 2017. During the EHT observations, NASA's Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope was also looking for changes in gamma ray emission from M87. Data from these missions and other telescopes may be used to help figure out what was going on if EHT detected changes in the structure of the black hole's environment. While staring at M87's black hole, the global team collected more than a petabyte of data using this collaborative effort. It took scientists 2 years to put together the snapshot we have today, our first actual look at a black hole. We need to learn a lot about black holes, and especially supermassive black holes, which have masses that are more than 1 million suns together. Scientists have determined that each large galaxy contains a supermassive black hole at its center. The one at the center of the Milky Way is called Sagittarius A, and it has a mass equal to 4 million suns. As you can imagine, a black hole of that size would do a lot of damage to Earth and everything around it. In fact, we wouldn't stand a chance if a black hole decided to get close to us. But will that ever happen? Should we be staying awake at night worried that we are about to be swallowed whole by one of these monstrous deep space enigmas? By blind luck alone, it's very unlikely that Earth will ever come even remotely close to a black hole. The black hole at the center of our Milky Way is 26,000 light-years away. So, even if it was chomping up planets right now, we wouldn't even notice. But it's not. In fact, scientists think it's actually not affecting the planets or stars surrounding it. Remember, a black hole, like a star, is a concentration of mass that other things orbit around. So there's a chance that a galaxy could continue like normal with a black hole in it. However, a supermassive black hole would be a whole different story, but it needs a galaxy much bigger than ours to thrive, eat, and grow. So, we are safe from black holes and supermassive black holes, at least for now. Our closest spiral galaxy, named Andromeda, already has 2 supermassive black holes in it. The galaxy is flying towards it at an astonishing 110 kilometers per second. And when it finally smashes into the Milky Way, there is a chance that they will become one black hole that would be 100 million times larger than the mass of the Sun. When that happens, the chances of everything around the black hole, including our galaxy, will likely be completely consumed. The sheer mass and strength of it will essentially crush everything and all forms of matter. But of course, that's 4 billion years from now, so you and everyone you know are safe from this catastrophe that awaits far, far in the future. And keep in mind, our sun is set to explode in about 5 billion years, so our galaxy will be in its twilight years at that point anyway. The truth is that black holes are mysterious, dangerous, and still one of the biggest question marks floating through the stars. We may not know everything there is to know about them yet, but one thing is for sure, we don't have to worry about them coming close in the near future. Launched from Cape Canaveral on August 12, 2018, the Parker Solar Probe had one goal: make 24 up-close orbits of the star and study the Sun's atmosphere, also known as the corona. Right now, the probe is doing just that, flying by the Sun in ways no craft has ever done before. 3.7 million miles. That's how close Parker is getting to the Sun. That might seem like a huge distance away, but it's incredibly close compared to anything that's come before it. In fact, it's 8 times closer than any previous spacecraft, and nearly 9 times closer than the planet Mercury. So what is the purpose of the probe aside from breaking records? It was made to study the heat and energy from the Sun and how they move through the corona. Parker was also created to study the solar winds that come from the Sun's surface to see what accelerates them and where they originate from. Simply put, the Parker Solar Probe is there to answer questions about the Sun, solar physics, and solar winds that scientists have been asking for more than 50 years. In fact, back in the 1950s, a probe like this was proposed, but as you can imagine, science hadn't caught up with the dreams of scientists, and there was no feasible way to create a spacecraft that could withstand the heat from the Sun. It's the solar winds that are the heart and soul of Parker's mission. Solar winds are a collection of charged particles that stream from the Sun and flow past Earth at speeds of more than 1 million miles per hour or 1.6 million kilometers per hour. These winds can affect our planet's magnetic field and create something known as space weather. Space weather is the energy that courses through space and can impact or even destroy our satellites. Our man-made satellites are vital for all of humanity, powering everything from television to cell phones to weather reports and plane trips. Now you can imagine why understanding solar winds and space weather is so important. One of the craziest things about solar winds is that there is no discernible cause for them. There is no organized wind close to the Sun's surface, but they are still being ejected from it somehow. You have to remember that the Sun isn't like Earth. It doesn't have a solid surface. Instead, the Sun is a molten, churning mass of burning heat that is kept together by the immense gravity of its course. The Sun is so large and so dense that anything even remotely close to it is grabbed hold of by it. Yet somehow these solar winds are able to escape from the Sun's gravity and then build up speed that allows them to jet through space at millions of miles per hour. Scientists believe there is some unknown factor that is accelerating these massive waves of wind, and the Parker probe is in the business of finding out exactly what it is. Then there are the questions behind the Sun's corona, which is something else the Parker probe is digging into. The corona is essentially the atmosphere of the Sun. It has an incredibly wide radius that reaches out millions of miles. The area in which the Sun's gravity and magnetic field suck in anything around it is called the Alphen critical surface. Scientists have long known of this point of no return, but until now they could never figure out just how far away from the Sun it travels. Previously, scientists have thought that the critical surface was somewhere between 4.3 to 8.6 million miles from the surface of the Sun, or about 10 to 20 times the radius. But as it turns out, Parker has shown that it's about 8.1 million miles above the Sun. The Parker probe is looking into the corona because this is where we will learn most about the solar winds flowing from the star's surface. For instance, it already learned a lot about the corona. Parker revealed that it's not just a smooth circle around the Sun, but instead it has a series of enormous spikes and valleys. This information is a major step forward to understanding what propels solar winds. Despite being millions of miles away from the surface, the Parker probe couldn't spend much time being this close. That's because even the corona is scorching hot. In fact, for some strange reason, the corona is actually hotter than the Sun's surface. The corona is 1 million degrees Kelvin, 1.8 million degrees Fahrenheit, while the star's surface is a comparatively cool 6,000 Kelvin. Now, how does that work? Why is the corona around the Sun actually hotter than its surface? That's just another question the Parker Solar Probe is looking to answer. Even with 4.5-inch thick carbon composite solar shield, the probe is having to be very careful with its time in the corona. That's why it is completing its mission in a series of huge swoops that bring it close and then back away into safety. By the time Parker finishes its journey in 2024, it will have made 21 close approaches to the Sun over the course of 7 years. At its closest flyby, the probe will orbit within 3.9 million miles of the Sun's surface. Scientists equate that with being on the 4-yard line of a football field while the Sun rests in the end zone. Yes, it really is that close. The Parker probe will happen to be close to the Sun during a critical time in its 11-year cycle. Every 11 years, our star completes a solar cycle of calm and stormy activity and then starts a new one. Luckily, the Parker probe will be able to better understand the Sun's cycle, which has a direct effect on solar winds and nearly everything else related to the Sun. The current solar cycle we are in started in December 2019 and will peak in July 2025, meaning Parker will catch the tail end of it. For all the hard work that Parker is doing, there will still be countless mysteries about the Sun, which means that hopefully this probe won't be the last one sent by NASA. But the information currently being dug up by the Parker Solar Probe is still giving us so much insight into how the Sun works. Voyager 2 was launched from Cape Canaveral on August 20th, 1977, and Voyager 1 was sent into space on September 5th, only weeks later. Just a mere 18 months into their mission, the two ships made their first exploration. The inaugural location was Jupiter, where the ships were able to discover in great detail the deep churning clouds that floated above the planet's surface. The image quality was unlike anything else ever seen. But another discovery was just around the corner on one of Jupiter's moons. The moon, Io, was captured in its full glory, and it revealed something startling and unexpected: volcanoes. Up until that point, the only known volcano activity was on Earth. But when the Voyager spacecraft flew by Io, they found 10 times the amount of volcanic activity than on Earth. Jupiter's moon, Europa, also had surprising discoveries that revealed a cracked surface, which for the first time suggested that there was liquid water below the surface. Before Voyager explored Europa, the only known liquid ocean belonged to Earth. These were just two of many discoveries that Voyager would send back home to Earth over the first years. When Voyager reached Saturn in 1980, it sent back breathtaking shots of the planet and revealed so much. It uncovered an additional moon, among many other things. Firstly, Voyager took a deep look at the moons Enceladus and Titan. Enceladus was particularly interesting because it was the first time we had the chance to look at it, which has since been studied thoroughly and is now considered a prime candidate for life in the universe. Voyager 1 discovered a wealth of fresh information about Saturn and its moons during its approach. Prometheus, Pandora, and Atlas are 3 new moons the spacecraft discovered in its trip past the planet. Prometheus and Pandora are F-ring shepherding moons, whereas Atlas is an A-ring shepherd. The discovery of these moons proved that Saturn's moons are largely made of water ice, something not known before Voyager. As mentioned, the probe also discovered fresh facts on Saturn's biggest moon, Titan. It was discovered that Titan had a thick atmosphere that obscures its surface from visible light cameras and telescopes. Titan's atmosphere, like Earth's, is mainly nitrogen. Nevertheless, its surface pressure is 1.6 times that of Earth's. Similarly, it discovered that Saturn's top atmosphere is 7% helium and the remainder is largely hydrogen. Scientists theorize that Saturn releases more heat than it gets from the Sun due to its atmospheric makeup. But that's not all, there is more. Saturn's G-rings were also detected by Voyager 1. The exploration of Saturn and its moons had a huge impact on scientists all over the world, and especially those at NASA. It taught them that all moons are unique, special, and worthy of study. Moons are not just satellite rocks floating around planets. They are capable of some great and powerful things, such as life. In 1986, Voyager cruised past Uranus and snapped the first pictures of that gas planet, and also uncovered 10 new moons too. Just 3 years later, Voyager 2 sailed by Neptune's moon, Triton. There, the spacecraft witnessed geysers of nitrogen erupting. This was something truly unheard of and changed the way that scientists viewed the possibilities of space. As one NASA probe put it, time after time, we found things on Earth happening all over the solar system. They're still moving along some years after they were originally launched, and they are still receiving groundbreaking information and data that scientists have always dreamed of. 32 years after its encounter with Saturn, Voyager 1 crossed interstellar space and became the furthest human-made object in the universe. At this point, the project was renamed the Voyager Interstellar Mission, and it was expanded to investigate the solar system beyond our outer planets. The new mission's objectives were to gather data on the heliosphere and the heliopause boundary, the Sun's magnetic field's outer boundaries, and the outward flow of solar wind. The heliopause, the heliosphere's farthest edge, marks the entrance to interstellar space. Understanding this threshold has ramifications on our understanding of the Sun's trip through the galaxy, which may lead to new insights about the condition of other stars spread around the universe. When Voyager 1 first reached interstellar space on August 25, 2012, scientists got their first excellent glimpse at the heliopause. They couldn't understand what they were seeing at first. For example, scientists discovered that the interstellar magnetic field is 2 to 3 times greater than previously assumed, implying that interstellar particles exert up to 10 times more pressure on our heliosphere than previously anticipated. In addition, Voyager 2 confirmed that the heliopause is one leaky border, and the leaks go both ways. Before Voyager 1 passed through the heliopause, it zoomed through tendrils of interstellar particles that had punched into the heliopause like tree roots through rock. Voyager 2, however, saw a trickle of low-energy particles that extended more than 100 million miles beyond the heliopause. Because of its up-close and personal view of the heliopause, Voyager was able to radically transform the way scientists understood it and the Sun as a whole. The Voyager spacecrafts have discovered so much on their peaceful mission through the cosmos, but perhaps the most stunning image they captured was the simplest. On Valentine's Day 1990, more than 10 years since launch, Voyager 2 turned its camera around towards Earth and captured the view of the entire solar system. It was so far away from Earth that our planet was just a small, single pixel blue dot that was nearly invisible to the naked eye. In that image and moment, Voyager summed up the entire idea behind the project and a fact that is both calming and unsettling. Earth is just one tiny piece of the universe, and there is still so much beyond what we know. Thanks for watching, and while you are still here, go ahead and click the video on your screen for more fascinating stories about space. I'll see you there.